It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. So a friend of mine posted an article this week. Headline, Conrad Black. The IPCC isn't quite as apocalyptic as Greta Thunberg. So according to someone named Conrad Black, Greta Thunberg is a shill, a front, a prop, a puppet of radical left-wingers, leftists, leftism, they call it over on that side. We did a program a while ago. I don't recall the date. Maybe I can find that for you and bring it back. Yeah, we talked about this before. There's a certain school of thought out there. My mind is going, who's the Canadian bon vivant? Let's see, I'll Google a Canadian professor who's afraid of women and political correctness. This is how I search. Yeah, and there it comes. Jordan Peterson. That's how I search. Yeah, Jordan Peterson. I always forget his name. Jordan Peterson. Yeah, Jordan Peterson seems to be kind of at the top of the hill of this particular group. He's a good poster boy, I guess would be the expression. Yeah, he's the poster boy for this school of thought. That everything, quote-unquote, liberal, environmentalism, women's equality, just basic goodness, is all to be labeled as radical leftism. And they use the term leftism as a pejorative, as an epithet, to brand it as a cult-like religion. And with their political correctness, they want to have power. It's all about power. They want to have power over everybody. Well, I think there's a lot of projection going on here. It is all about power, and those who have it want to keep it, and those, especially who are white, and all of these proponents are white. There are some who openly advocate for white supremacy and for white nationalism. This group doesn't go quite that far. They're a little bit careful, just a little bit careful about how they speak. But it's about white supremacy, and it's about the male hierarchy. And if any of them are listening right now, including my friend who shared this article, they would be denying quite vociferously. They'd be denying that that's their MO. So anyway, and I don't need to go into all of this. It's just, it basically denies, it misrepresents, this article by Conrad Black, misrepresents the IPCC reporting. Of course, the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change. And they've been warning us about the dire situation we're in regarding climate change. So he goes about quoting and selecting and misrepresenting the IPCC report, saying, oh, it's really not that bad, you're reading too much into it, which is ridiculous on its face. And it's a real hit job on Greta Thunberg, who you know we love and admire on this program. And I don't need to share this with you. You don't need to read this. But as soon as I saw it, I got a whiff of what this was about. Yeah, it's white power, it's male hierarchy, it's fear of power sharing, and it's a hit piece on Greta and all of us who admire her. They really, 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 really spend a lot of time on Greta Thunberg and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and any other, the squad, the so-called squad. They really don't like women and people of color having any power and messing with their status quo. So, yeah, I whiffed this out pretty quickly. It was kind of obvious. And then, as I always say, it takes you about, let's count, 1, 2, and I've got a slow computer. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I see my computer's very slow. There are about 10 seconds. I always say it takes about 10 seconds to just Google something up here. Conrad Black is a bad guy. You just do a quick little wiki search on him. He's this Canadian billionaire guy, and he spent some time in jail. He's just this nefarious character. He's a climate change denier, former newspaper publisher, financier, historian, commentator, columnist. Yeah, he was a know-it-all from the beginning. He published newspapers. He was born rich. Let's start there. He was born rich, born a billionaire, had it right in his crib with him. So there's that. So what should I do? Well, I'm a know-it-all, and I think I've got it. So I'll publish newspapers, but then he really increased his fortune. One of the companies he acquired, which was one of his hobbies, was acquiring companies, was the Ohio-based Hannah Mining Company back in the early 80s. So he's a billionaire, know-it-all, self-proclaimed teacher and commentator in the mining business. And, look at this. Convicted. Black was convicted on 4 counts in U.S. District Court in Chicago on July 13, 2007. Sentenced to serve 6.5 years in federal prison and to pay $6.1 million in reparations, in addition to a fine of $250,000. Let's see, embezzlement and among other crimes. So convicted, jailed, and then, of course, pardoned by Agent Orange in May of this year. Full pardon, because he's a rich guy who has the right ideas. He and Agent Orange are friends. He uses his publications to write positively about Agent Orange in opinion articles, and even wrote a book, Donald J. Trump, a president like no other. Well, I think we'd agree with that part. So, I don't know, I'm spending way too much time on this. Yeah, it's easy to sniff out. You're going to see this occasionally. The absolute fear of anything that's not white and rich. They're coming to get you. They're coming to get you. Yeah, we're coming. Well, we are. Yeah, billionaires should not exist. The entire way we do things needs to change. If we need minerals, whatever Black is mining, Conrad Black, whatever he's mining, yeah, we probably need it for one thing or another. But the way we're doing everything is wrong. It's like one of those headlines you see. I love those headlines. Whatever you think about X, just fill in the X. Whatever you think about X is wrong. Those are my favorite headlines. Often they're just to get your attention, to be provocative. But sometimes, yeah, everything we know about such and such is wrong. Well, everything we know about everything is kind of wrong. When it comes to just how we produce goods, how we consume goods, the whole world of production and consumption, the way we do it, it's all wrong. But yeah, Conrad Black and his ilk, again, Jordan Peterson being at the top of the heap, there's a fear of losing their power. And I guess I don't quite understand it. Maybe if I had all that money and all that power, it would play with my brain and it would foster some cognitive dissonance, and maybe I would understand them better. But I can't understand why a billionaire needs billions of dollars. It's literally impossible to spend except to just make more billions. You can buy, with $1 billion, you can buy $1 billion company and increase your fortune, and you can use it to increase your fortune, but you can't use it to actually serve yourself. Even if you're the most selfish person in the world, you can only have so many yachts and so many houses, and what's a guy going to do with 1 billion houses? He mathematically, literally won't be able to see them in his lifetime. Just knowing that he has them gives him pleasure? I don't know. I'll never understand this. I'm not going to try. It gives me a headache. I'm trying to remember what show we did. Oh, it was quite a while ago now. And, now that I'm talking about this, it reminds me, I promised at the time that we would follow up on it, and we never did, so my apologies. But, yeah, I mentioned several of these types, these white power know-it-alls who are afraid of people of color and afraid of women, and how it's inextricably tied, for some reason, to climate change denial. They are really hand in hand. I wonder when we did that. Well, I'll just have to reiterate my promise that I'll go back and I'll look for that, and we'll talk more. What else is on my stack here? I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh quite frequently when I was a commuter. When I was working at Sirius XM, I was a commuter. And I would listen to Rush Limbaugh, which I still recommend that you listen to the crazy right-wingers occasionally. It's good to know what they're thinking, and it's good to know their strategies. And I tuned into Rush occasionally. And he had this great thing. He would always talk about the stack. He would talk about the stack of papers that he had in front of him, all the articles, and he would keep referring to the stack. And when he'd pull one out, he would make a big deal about, making sure we heard it. Because he pulled another one off the stack. Oh, and there's the stack. Make a little noise with that. Pull another one off. Oh, let me read this to you. And he'd make a big deal out of that. And I thought that was really kind of brilliant. Because, the reason I bring it up, because now my stack is a list of files on my computer, and you can't hear me unless I were to very loudly click and type as loudly as I could. But it was a really nice little device. So we're moving to a new topic. And here's something that's very important. And it was this great little Pavlovian kind of signal that it's real. This is real stuff. Listen. If it wasn't real, could it make that sound? So maybe I'll incorporate that device into my program. When I start a new topic, I kind of like that. I think I'm going to borrow that from Rush. So what else have I got? Oh, here's something. I don't actually have it in front of me, but I'll continue with the illusion. Marie Kondo. You know who this is, right? She's the decluttering guru, according to this headline. That's a good way of putting it. I don't know. She had a show or a podcast or a book or something. I don't know. I didn't follow too closely, but we all heard about Marie Kondo. You only keep what sparks joy, and you toss the rest. She's all about minimalism and living, this pure kind of life. And she became this big thing. Well, Marie Kondo's latest venture, I'm reading here, Marie Kondo's latest venture has left some of her fans baffled and a bit unimpressed. The Japanese tidying guru has built a very successful career on advising people how to get rid of clutter in their homes. Her minimalist mantra is to hold every item in your hands and only keep those that spark joy. Now it appears Kondo wants you to fill those empty spaces with items from her new online store. So Marie Kondo hits it big with her celebrity. Everybody's following her. So what's the next thing to do? An online store. A collection of items that spark joy for Marie and enhance your everyday routine. It features things such as a $275 brass tool holder, a $96 gold ladle, and a $75 desktop box. That hasn't sat well with some followers of the KonMari method, who were quick to point out the irony of their minimalist hero selling, quote, dumb crap, unquote, that arguably no one really needs. Marie Kondo opening an online shop that sells dumb crap you don't need is my favorite heel turn of 2019. It's a PJ Vogt tweet, whoever that is. Oh, some more random tweets. Have to hand it to Marie Kondo. This is a truly inspired hustle. Okay, I will be the first to admit that I am a KonMari lifer, but you guys, she's selling a stick. Yeah, there's a picture. It's a shiatsu stick. And it is quite literally a stick. It's just a small stick. It's only $12. So, okay. I am a long-standing advocate for minimalism. We've talked about it on this program. And I'm going to be consistent. I'm the Bernie Sanders of radio. I am consistent, if nothing else. I might be wrong, I might be right, but I am consistent. And I've always advocated for minimalism, and I practice it in my own life, and I will never, ever, ever sell you anything. This podcast will always be free. I will never accept a sponsor that wants you to buy its crap. Okay? Marie Kondo. Yeah, I'm a minimalist from way, way back. I don't buy things. It's better for my soul. It's just better for my well-being that there's not clutter in the house and not a lot of stuff. The idea that the things you own wind up owning you is, I've found to be so 100% true. So over the years, I only have what I need. I have the tools of my trade, which I'm looking at right now. I got a mixer and a couple of computers, and, I've got that. Basic stuff that I need, furniture. I'm sitting in a chair that I bought from a friend who worked in an office, and they were getting new furniture, so I got this real cheap and used, and it's fine, and I'll probably have it for I probably never need a chair again. So yeah, I don't live in a bunker down by the river. I have basic stuff, furniture, and I have plates and knives and forks, and I have what I need. I have a bed. But no, I don't remember the last thing I bought. I don't remember the last time I went out and actually bought anything. I'm literally here trying to think. Let's see. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't recall. So it's better for me personally. I feel better. I feel my soul is healthier when I don't have junk and stuff. There is that kind of a high when you do buy something. We all have that just because we're human beings, and we all have the same brain and the same dopamine and the same, science tells us what happens. We get that rush. Some people get addicted to it. And, I remember the last thing I bought. I bought a tabletop. I had an old thrift store kitchen table, round wooden table. And I did a little rearranging in my house. I made an island in my kitchen from this shelf and countertop that were sitting in my basement that belonged to the landlord. And they were just old junk and sitting over in the corner. And I put the shelf over on its side. I put the counter on top, and I went, hey, look at that. That makes a pretty good island. So I made an island, and now my life is better. My life is much better now that I have a nice counter. And, the table, of course, that I used to have down there was table height. Standard table height. Now my island is counter height, so it makes my kitchen work much easier that I have that height to work on. And so then I brought the table into my dining room, which I have. I live in a big old house in River West. I shouldn't say big, but it's big for one person. I've got plenty of room. Anyway, and then when the table went to the dining room, I realized, it's kind of small. It's kind of small for this room, and if I have some friends over, it's really not going to work. So I need a new tabletop. So that's the last thing I bought. I bought a tabletop. I just bought the top and then put it on the kitchen table and turned it into a dining room table. Worked very nicely. A little DIY kind of a project there. And when that tabletop arrived, I got a little bit of a rush. I'm no different than anybody else. Yeah, I got kind of a rush. Oh, it's a new thing. But as we all know, that feeling is temporary, to say the least. The rush doesn't last. That's why people get addicted. They need the next high and the next high of shopping. And that's why I am a minimalist. I try to avoid that cycle of addiction, consumption. And it can't be questioned that it's just better for the earth. We all know that if we take climate change seriously, if we take the world environment seriously, we have to understand that production and consumption are at the very heart of the problem. Yes, each of us as an individual has to keep an eye and try to limit our own energy consumption. But I think we forget, and it's worthy of a frequent reminder, that everything we buy off of a shelf has a long journey that it took to get into our homes. The raw materials had to be extracted, it had to be fashioned and produced, it had to be packaged, it had to be transported, and all along the way, at every step of this process, is energy use. So buying a little tchotchke off the shelf, you're completing that process. So I figure the fewer tchotchkes I buy, the less I'm contributing to that process. And it's the very least I can do. And the carbon emissions that are spewed into the air at now record levels are coming from industrial production, coming from transportation, all of which we contribute to every time we buy a tchotchke off the shelf. Oh, I'm just one person. No, that's not the way it works. No. That argument does not fly with me. I've used the voting analogy many times. Well, I'm only one person. Why should I vote? Well, there are pretty obvious reasons. So yeah, I'm a minimalist, and I'm gonna stay that way. And Marie Kondo can suck it. Marie Kondo. See, this is why I've always been such... What's the opposite of fan? I've been an anti-fan of Oprah. I think she personifies this more than any other human ever on the planet in history. She presents this guru kind of status for herself, where fans of hers don't just like her, like you would admire some sort of personality or writer or television host or actor or actress. No, it's gone so far beyond that. Oprah represents this lifestyle that we're supposed to emulate, to be fully evolved people, to be happy. And they become devoted to her. And she fosters that relationship. But it's just all about selling things. It's all it's about. And like many in that ilk, it was selling TV shows and making public appearances and making lots of money that way as this media personality. But then she really took it home then. And she started recommending books and having the book club. Okay, now let's sell some books. And kind of like Amazon went from books to literally everything. Now Oprah just sells everything. Not in the traditional celebrity endorsing a product kind of a thing. She's infused herself, she's melded with this cult of consumption. So that now she has the, what does she call it? The favorite things, Oprah's favorite things or something. So she took that model that she kind of stumbled upon with the books and the authors on her show, and she extrapolated that into this whole industry of, okay, well now I'm going to put my name behind some product. And now it's thousands of products. And again, she doesn't just endorse like a celebrity would endorse. She partners with the producers of the product. So it's a car or makeup or home decor, whatever it is. So now when you, as a devoted acolyte of Oprah, when I buy that product, when I buy that love seat, when I buy that bedding, those pillows and blankets and sheets, I'm now a member of that cult. I am in good favor with Oprah. I have melded with my hero, with my guru. I've become one with Oprah by buying this product. That's literally what she's created. It's weird and culty and Orwellian and completely frightening. You think I'm taking this too seriously, don't you? No, I'm not. This is messing with our heads. This is so far beyond the simple model of production and advertising and consumption, which we've lived with forever. Oprah created something quite new and became a billionaire doing it and made herself into this religious, spiritual cult leader with millions upon millions of devoted followers. Not just fans, followers, believers. So now this little Marie Kondo comes along as a dime store version of Oprah. But it's a very similar model. Now, not even close to Oprah, she's the queen of this. She's high atop the mountain on this idea. Gwyneth Paltrow, with her thing. What is it? Goop? Gorp? It's really more like a televangelist. That's kind of the model. It's preaching about a lot of different things, but it's really all about the coin, right? Now, with any televangelist, with Oprah, with Gwyneth Paltrow, with Marie Kondo, I can't judge where they are. I don't know. Maybe they've convinced themselves, maybe they really do believe that they are serving the world in this way. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt just for the moment, that they really do believe this. They believe that they are in service. I've been called upon by God or the goddess or the higher spirit or whatever you want. I've been called upon to serve this role in life. And if I make $1 billion doing it, well, that's just more proof that I'm doing the right thing. Maybe they believe that. Maybe they do. Quite likely, I would say, actually, now that I think about it, very likely they believe that. I think it's just as likely that when they go into their dressing room all by themselves after they've entertained the throngs, whether it's Jimmy Swaggart or Oprah Winfrey or whoever it is, that when they go, when they're alone outside of the view of the world, they may wring their hands like an evil villain and go, more money for me. I have fooled the masses once again. I think that's just as likely. It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. Oh, man. Hey, I saw Hamilton. Okay, I got to talk to you about Hamilton. This was quite an experience. If you've seen it, I don't have to tell you, all the hype is true. It's well-deserved. It's amazing. As a piece of theater, this thing is just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's a beautiful piece of theater. It's a great work. The music, the performances, the dancing, everything about it. The concept, brilliant. Just brilliant. Everything, every great thing you've ever heard about Hamilton is 100% deserved. It's absolutely true. Now, just before intermission, I was so annoyed I was thinking about leaving at intermission. Not because of the production I was seeing, it was great. But I just didn't know how much more I could take of this reverence for the Founding Fathers. Lin-Manuel Miranda, good for you. You did a beautiful thing. But the whole first act is about gaining power. Hamilton himself wants power. One of my favorite songs in the piece is sung by the Aaron Burr character, and that's In the Room Where It Happens. I want to be in the room when it happens. I want to be one of the guys making it happen. In the room. I want to be in the room. So that was the theme. That was the motif here. It was all about power and making it happen. And not just individual power, but then the war begins. The revolution really begins. And now we're out fighting a war, a literal war with guns and bayonets and death. The whole first act was about power and war, and it was glorifying it in this horrible jingoistic kind of way. I couldn't take it. I really came so close to just getting up and leaving at intermission. I was so annoyed by it. I was probably sighing. I don't know, but I'll bet if you got the people who were sitting next to me, they'd tell you. I was probably going, I remember when my kids were little and I had to take them to these horrible movies. There's no choice when you're a parent. You got to take them to these, and they're just so stupid, these movies, these animated movies. And I remember my son, he was just a little kid. He looked up at me at one point and said, "Dad, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, of course. What's the matter?" He said, "You keep sighing." And I realized, yeah, watching this animated movie where people are doing ridiculous things and they're always escaping for their lives. In every movie, nobody is more than a couple minutes away from near death. They're always escaping with their lives. It's like, come on. And I was probably, "Dad, are you okay?" So that was my feeling at Hamilton. If I could do a little revisionist history, I would love to explore what I believe to be true, and that is, I think we would have been much better off if we just stayed with England. We would have eventually gained our independence, just like Canada did. They didn't need a war. Democracy, there was no stopping democracy as a world movement. It would have happened. We would have had it. But instead, we were born, literally, quite literally, this country was born out of war. War birthed us. War was our midwife. War was our father. who planted the seed. We were born out of war. We were born from war. And we haven't stopped ever since this country has been at war. And the musical Hamilton, at least the first act, really just completely extols this idea and seems to love it and glorify it. And I hated that. I hated that. As brilliant as the art was, that's how horrifying to me the message was. Screw Hamilton. Screw them all. Then I decided to stay for the second act. It got a little better. Then it was more about governing. I found that a lot more interesting. Then it was now we've got a country and we've got a president, and we're kind of figuring how this is going to work. And Washington's decision to leave office, to step down, was an important moment. And then I was okay. I'm fine. Okay, this is better. And as I said, the art itself, the music, the dancing, everything about it. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So I'm glad I went. I'm glad I went to see Hamilton. So there's my Hamilton review. Okay, Boomer. You know what I'm talking about. This passed us like a meteor. It was a thing for about 4 days, and then it just went away. So I missed the boat. I missed the opportunity to talk about OK Boomer. But I'm not going to let that stop me. Didn't you love the way OK Boomer just came? All of a sudden, it was there. And within literally 24 hours, it was the hottest thing. Everybody's talking about OK Boomer. And there's a little residual effect, another 24 hours. And then it was, in less than a couple days, it was just gone. It was over. It was a phenomenon. Now, I'm sure I don't have to explain this, do I? Okay, if you are the only person out there who doesn't know about OK Boomer, let me just take a second. OK Boomer was a shorthand, especially for millennials. Gen X was kind of left on the sideline to just watch this fight. This is a fight between millennials and baby boomers. So when a baby boomer makes some derogatory remark about millennials and their avocado toast, you know, all this criticism of millennials, or pontificate, like I do, I'm a boomer, about this or that, especially the way you should be living your life, or the way millennials are lazy, or, you know, it's all this intergenerational back and forth. The little shorthand dismissive response from the millennial was, "Okay, Boomer." And it was kind of brilliant. It was kind of, I found it really a great little all-purpose, pithy, articulate, so succinct little signature put down. Okay, Boomer. You could use it on this program. Anytime I take a pause, you just say, "Okay, Boomer." And so within this 24, 48 hour little window, we got the full arc of this story. First, we hear, well, I'm talking personally now. I was unaware of it. Obviously, other people weren't. All of us heard about it, and I saw people posting, "What's this OK Boomer thing?" So I wasn't the only one who didn't know. But just in this quick 48-hour window, it goes from discovering the phrase, okay, what does it mean? And then it really hit the fan when boomers got all upset and they cried ageism. This is ageist. Someone went so far as to say, this is the N-word for boomers. So pretty over the top. So then that's the debate. And again, within about 48 hours, it's all over. Well, my take on it was, I think it was brilliant. I think it was funny. I think it's effective. I love OK Boomer. It's not ageist. I've talked about ageism. I'm someone who thinks we should be much more aware of ageism. I talk about it in the presidential race. Anybody talking about Bernie's age, that is just 100% pure ageism. There's nothing about his age that should matter. I've experienced it myself. A little personal story here. When I left SiriusXM, that was out in California where that was based, where I was based, in that job, and I decided to move back here to Wisconsin, I spent about a year or more looking for work in radio before I decided just to do it on my own. And I decided to do it on my own because I was getting nowhere. Ageism, racism, sexism, they're so hard to prove. It's such a difficult thing to take to any kind of a court and prove. But there was just no denying it. I was applying for work in radio, I was getting interviews, and every single time, without exception, the person who wound up in that job was someone in their 20s or 30s. I know I was a victim of ageism. There's just no doubt in my mind. So I take it personally as well. So I don't poo-poo ageism. It's a real thing. It is a thing. OK Boomer is not ageist. It's a specific response to a very specific kind of attitude that we see from boomers in social media, in commentary, and we've all seen it. Article after article. Millennials are killing this industry, they're killing that industry, they're not saving money, they're complaining about things. They just have to work harder and save better, and I did it, why can't you? And ignoring the last 20, 30 years of upheaval in the economy that put millennials in a position that we boomers did not face. Now, I'm going to step into this a little bit, and I'm going to take a chance here. When I was young and coming up, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and even mid-20s, it was kind of understood that you couldn't just step from your parents' lifestyle right into your own lifestyle that was equivalent. It was kind of understood that you'd have maybe a crummy job for crummy wages. You'd have to have 2 or 3 roommates, and that's just the way it was. And everybody, we just accepted that. That's just the way it was. For a couple of years, you're going to have roommates and you're going to eat peanut butter, and you're not going to be able to afford to go out and do things, probably. And that's just the way of the world. And I know some millennials, I know lots of millennials. In the kind of work I do outside the studio, I interact with millennials on a daily basis. And I've got lots of them in my family, my own kids and my nieces and nephews. So I'm with millennials often. And some of them, not all of them, but some of them, they do sort of have a disappointment, it seems, that they couldn't walk right from their parents' lifestyle into their own matching lifestyle. I didn't find that same expectation that I had as a kid, that, yeah, you struggle for a little while. You make lousy money and you eat crummy food and you have roommates. And you have a crummy car. That's just the way it is, and then you build up. Now, I'm really working really hard here to check my privilege, and I think maybe the big difference is that along with my expectation of having a couple of years of, the salad days, they call them, right along with that was also the expectation, the belief that it was going to be temporary. That if I go ahead and I have the crummy job and I have the crummy car and I just work for a couple of years, there's progress. That was just inevitable. I would grow from that into a better car and a better job and a better wage and better conditions and a better house and fewer roommates, and then live on your own and then get married. And that expectation was just solid. So I can understand why today's millennial, especially the younger ones, aren't so sanguine about living with less and struggling a little bit when they don't see that future ahead for them. That the good future, they see that as a permanent condition. And who can blame them? And then you pile on that conditions that are measurably worse, far worse than my salad days. And that's the cost of an education, the debt that one takes on as a student, stagnant wages, housing costs, double and triple and quadruple what they were when I was that age. And then an economy, when you look to the future, that is nothing but uncertain, especially as robotics and AI and automation take more and more jobs, the rise of the gig economy, which exploits workers and keeps them in this cycle of just this constant hustle and this constant just getting by. And the attitude in millennials, which I greatly admire, and that is that they do not want to give up their own personhood in order to work for a company. They don't want to give up their own values. They want to have meaning in their lives, and they want their work to have meaning, and they want the workplace to reflect that, and the culture of that workplace to also have meaning. This is something I admire. I admire so much in millennials. And the corporate culture, the office workplace, so slow. It's a snail's pace to accept that attitude and to adapt. Now, hopefully, over time, I mean, best if it happens right away, but if it doesn't, at least over time, when millennials come into the power positions, which they inevitably will, it's only a matter of the clock ticking, that they can shift the culture of work. But who can blame them for being frustrated by all of this? I certainly don't. So when boomers get all preachy and want to blame millennials and call them slackers and call them entitled, okay, boomer. Yeah. That is it. That packs a wallop. Whoever came up with it first, my hat's off. It is brilliant in its pithy, succinct punch. I'm a fan of OK Boomer. It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. So it's deer season here in Wisconsin. Broadcasting from the New Arts and Media Studios here in the River West neighborhood of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's deer season. Oh, this is a weird time of year. Thanksgiving and anti-Thanksgivings and the National Day of Mourning for Native Americans. Black Friday. This time of year is fraught. And right in the middle of it, deer season. Hunting is pathologically weird. I don't care if it's in your culture. I don't care if it's in your family history. There are a lot of things in family histories. There's alcoholism, there's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, sexual abuse, misogyny, racism. There's a lot of things in family histories. I don't give a good goddamn about your family history. Hunting is just cruel and weird. You know, whenever the whole gun control thing comes up, liberals bend over backwards to say how much they honor the hunting culture. Oh, we don't want to take away your hunting guns. We just want to take away the military assault style weapons. Certainly you have a right to go hunting. I honor your family history. Nope, not me. Nope. It's just weird and sick. To take pleasure as a sport, to get off on murdering these glorious creatures of the woods. I have zero patience and zero understanding and zero sympathy for your so-called sport. Well, if we don't shoot them, they'll just starve to death, and that's even a worse thing. We're thinning the herd. No. That may well be true, but that's not the answer. The answer to overpopulation of deer is to allow natural predators back into the ecosystem, to allow nature to take its course, to not build out suburbs into areas of nature that should be untouched. There are much simpler solutions and much more humane solutions than just going out and shooting Bambi's mom. And this whole industry that grows up around it. You know, you got your Fleet Farm, and you got your Menards, and you got your, whoever. They can't wait to sell you all your gear. I love these guys who wear camouflage suits and then a big orange vest. Which is it, guys? Which do you want? You want to be seen or you want to be hidden? Make up your mind. You see this all the time. A camouflage jumpsuit and then a big old bright fluorescent orange vest. Well, which is it? Come on. And you got the gun industry, and you got the ammo, and you got all the gear, and you got the stuff, and this and that, and there's this camaraderie, and it's all this male thing. I'm sure there's one or two female deer hunters out there. Go ahead and write me a letter. But it's from what I can see, 99.9% male. And they go out in the woods, and who knows what they're doing out there. I know drinking is a big part of it. So beer and guns, always a nice combination. I am very happy to encourage and honor cultures that are not my own. I have a very sort of limited little culture of my own that includes just a few narrow little things in my particular European American white male Midwest guy kind of a thing. But I honor other cultures. Go for it. Enjoy your culture and all the many little rituals and customs and food and music that it entails. But the gun culture, the hunting culture, nope, not going with you. You're screwed up. It's wrong. I have zero tolerance, zero patience. And now it's deer season again. And don't tell me you're doing it for your food. That's just a joke. The money you spend on all your gear, your tack classes, the gun, the ammo, the time off work, and then if you get a kill, then you take it to some guy and you have it dressed. My brother has done this. My brother was a butcher, and he's done this. He's done the whole from just the dead deer dragged out of the woods to meat in your freezer. He's done that. So what it costs you in the end is 10 times, 100 times what you'd spend for a nice steak from the grocery store. So don't tell me you're doing it to feed yourself. Get out of here with that. I got no patience. I got none. Zero. You're screwy. You're sick. It should end. Nope. Well, once again, I'm trying to walk that line, that fine line between anger and happiness. I want to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. I've also got this sort of righteous anger that's with me all the time. I'm angry about the injustice in the world. Just a couple of blocks over from where I sit right now, there is poverty and violence on a level that most of us will never experience. I'm angry that right here in the city of Milwaukee, a majority city, that we are at the very bottom of the list when it comes to being black in America. The income inequality, education, health, safety, in just about every category, we are failing. That women still have to suffer the indignities of sexism and misogyny. That my LGBTQ friends still face the endangerment of their very lives, let alone their rights and their dignity. And that I, as a white hetero man, have failed up until now to meet my responsibility for these conditions. Because I've got to face it, as a white hetero cis male in America, I've been handed the keys to the kingdom. I have so many advantages. And as a white person in America, almost by definition, I am a white supremacist. Because if I really look at it honestly, if I check my privilege, if I dig deep inside my own psyche and ask myself some really tough questions, well, I'm afraid of the answers. Now, the hardcore white supremacist will say that the white race is an endangered species. We are being invaded, infiltrated, replaced, stripped of our position in this country. You'll also hear a white supremacist say, well, I'm not racist. I just have white pride, and I want to retain my position. I want to uphold my culture. I have a right to do that. And with changing demographics, that is slowly but surely being eroded. Now, of course, the white supremacist is correct in that regard. That position of advantage is being eroded. Unless something really drastic happens, just the natural order of births and deaths will force white Americans to simply be one of many. So we can actually agree with the white supremacist on the basic facts. The world is changing. So then the question becomes, well, how do I feel about that? Well, I can spout all the platitudes in the world. I can put on my nice liberal cloak, and I can parade confidently through the modern discourse and say all the right things and believe all the right things. But when I really face the tough question, well, are you going to be okay when you are in the minority? When there are many languages being spoken around you, and I only speak English, so I'm not going to understand the other languages. There are ways of living, personal and community culture, that don't match, that don't fit the culture in which I was raised. Now, I believe I can honestly say I'm going to be quite happy with that, but I better not be too glib. Would I be willing right now, today, just to pack up the house and move all my stuff a few blocks west, a few blocks north, and be the only white guy in a predominantly black neighborhood? Would I be willing to do that? I'll be honest with you. Out of my own, for good or for bad, white guilt, I've often considered it. Just finding the least desirable neighborhood by my family's standard and just move in. Maybe that would somehow alleviate my guilt, and my family would think I was crazy. I've always believed, and I've preached the sermon on this program, that we should all vote with our feet. That is, put into action that which we claim to believe. So when I say a white person is almost by definition a white supremacist, I think that's something we all have to consider. Do we really want a world where the traditional white hetero male is just one among many? So there are battles to be won. There are internal battles, political battles, cultural, matters of economic justice, environmental justice, social justice. And I want to fight those battles, but I don't feel that I or you should surrender our happiness in order to do it. It would seem self-evident that the opposite is true, that the happy person, the one that bounces out of bed, can't wait to get the day going. That's the person that's the most productive. And if their goals are righteous, then they're going to have more success. The Happy Warrior was the nickname of Hubert Humphrey. When I was a kid, he was the senator from Minnesota, went on to become vice president of the United States. And that was his nickname, the Happy Warrior, because he got up and he fought every day for social justice and economic justice. He was a good old-fashioned liberal. And yet he always had a big smile on his face and a joke at the ready. He had this great sort of joy and optimism that he exuded everywhere he went and in every fight that he took on. So that's a model. And especially in this time of year, as we begin the holidays, I genuinely wish happiness for you. I also genuinely hope that you and I can simultaneously maintain that righteous anger and put that into action as well. As I rail against the injustices of the world on this program, I must hasten to add that there is so much to celebrate, just in the humanity that we share, in our art and in our culture, in our music. And then, of course, on the grandest scale of all, the sun continues to shine and bring life and beauty. If your heart doesn't swell in the presence of nature, well, you got to find that. You got to reclaim that. The beauty of nature and the fulfillment that it brings to the soul just can't be described. I went to a psychologist once because I was having some personal problems, and I thought maybe I was depressed. And on one visit, he was a little bit late, and he left me waiting in his office for a few minutes. And he had these very large picture windows in his office, and the windows looked out on woods. It was really beautiful. No parking lot, no street, nothing but this kind of very bucolic woods. And it had begun to snow, and it was quite a picture. And he came in, apologized for making me wait, and I said, "No, that's all right. Actually, I really enjoyed sitting here and looking at this beautiful picture here. Look at this beautiful snow. Can you believe this? Wow, this is great, isn't it?" He said, Yeah, it is. And we had our session, and at the end of the session, I just came right out and asked him. I said, "Okay, we've seen each other a few times now. What do you think? I mean, am I depressed?" He said, "No, you're not depressed." He said, "I have patients who are depressed, and believe me, they never would have noticed the beauty of that snow in the woods. You're okay. You got some situational problems I can help you deal with, but you're all right." So if you can see that beauty, count yourself very fortunate. There is so much to be grateful for and happy about, just in living. But I try very hard not to let that blind me to the injustice of the world. I want to hold them both at the same time. I want to hold my anger and my happiness together. Like my experience at Hamilton, when I was angry at these ridiculous founding fathers and their power trips and their violence, while at the same time just completely enjoying the extraordinary art that was happening in front of me. See, I think we can hold those two things together, our righteous anger and our personal happiness. I think we can. We're coming up on the winter solstice here in just a couple of weeks. We are in the season where the planets and the stars are aligning, and the yin and the yang are in play. The light and the dark are equal. Each defines the other. The simultaneity of opposites, where two perceptually opposite forces are not only existing in the same space, but working together, each defining the other. So as we take this one more spin around the sun, and we enter this season, this celestial season, we're on this cosmic carousel, making one more trip around. We got one more chance to grab that brass ring. I say we reach for it. I'm going to keep trying. And I wish for you always, and especially at this time of year, true and profound happiness. And I wish for you a righteous anger that fuels your action, that puts you right in the fight, to be a happy warrior. This episode of The Log is available right now wherever you find your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, iHeart, YouTube, and the podcast source. Enter Charles Bursell Presents in the search window. Or best yet, go to charlesbursell.com. There you'll find this and all the other series in the podcast family. Follow, comment, and contact me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. Theme music composed and performed by Peter Donalds. From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Bursell.